The Iran nuclear deal, an Israeli war with Hamas, and the rise of ISIS. All of these world-altering events have taken place since Passover of last year. That's when the first in a series of 4 blood moons appeared in the sky. We're now approaching the last of these blood moons. And as Eric Stakelbeck reports, some believe it could be a signal that God is getting ready to move on the world stage.
Of totality aimed to our south this time, but we don't have to wait that long before we have an eclipse here that will bring us into the path of totality. Only 7 years. That's not long to wait in astronomical terms. Only 7 years. On April 8th, 2024, there will be a total solar eclipse that has a much different path than this year's.
On September 23rd, 2017, the sun, moon, and stars will align to fulfill a 2,000-year-old prophecy. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God, and to his throne.
Therefore I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
There is a tradition that the 10th cow will be brought by the Messiah. And well, we're not claiming that that this is the Messiah or the Messiah is here. We really don't have ways of giving answers to those kind of questions.
Building the third temple, then everybody will prosper, because this is what this temple is for the whole world. So this is our job, to unify everybody to worship the only true living God in the third temple with all the nations that will worship God.
An Iranian military convoy has crossed into Syria from Iraq, and it appears that Iran may be working to establish a road link, an important road link between Damascus and Tehran.
Turkey invaded northern Syria last week to flush out America's Kurdish allies after Mr. Trump ordered U.S. troops withdrawn. Well, the result has been a bloodbath.
With U.S. forces pulling back from the battlefield, Russian troops have swept in to fill the power vacuum.
Officials now say more than 400 people have been sick and 9 people have died.
In Washington, Donald Trump has revealed his long-awaited Middle East peace plan. He's hardly the first U.S. president to tackle this monumental challenge, but he insists his proposal is different and that it will benefit both Israelis and Palestinians.
President Abbas, I want you to know that if you choose the path to peace, America and many other countries we will be there. We will be there to help you in so many different ways. And we will be there every step of the way.
This is the first time the world's largest hornet has been seen in the U.S. In its native Asia, Vespa mandarinia is notorious, seen on programs like Netflix's 72 Dangerous Animals. Washington State entomologist Chris Looney says the clock is ticking.
The goal is to eradicate it now while the population is presumably small.
If he and his colleagues can't wipe out the invaders this summer, they're likely to multiply and spread across the country with potentially disastrous consequences.
It's not quite as scary as it sounds, right, Godzilla? To put it into perspective for you, I worked in Florida as a meteorologist for 20 years. It's very common to get these dust storms. I've never seen a dust storm quite this big.
Scientists track every earthquake every minute across the globe, and they're seeing the numbers increase, and that's expected to continue.
Drop quickly, and we're already seeing that futures over the weekend were down so much that they actually had to put an emergency trigger that stopped trading, and the expectation and fear is that we will see markets in free fall this morning.
A record for the second straight day, more than, listen to this, 39,000 new infections. And take a look at this map. All 15 of those states have now hit daily records within just the past week.
A watershed moment that will cause the most serious violation of international law. That's how UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has described Israel's plans to annex parts of the occupied West Bank. Members of the UN Security Council and the Arab League have been meeting to discuss Israel's move, which could be put into motion as soon as next week. Most of them were united in their opposition, with warnings that Israel's unilateral action could trigger a major escalation in the region.
You pay for something, how do you pay for it?
What about phone?
On the streets of Beijing, cash is definitely not king.
What do you think of people who use cash to pay for things?
That's rare and weird, he says. Only the elderly and people who don't know how to use a phone pay cash. This woman says, I rarely take my wallet when I go out, just my phone. That's because those phones can buy just about anything, from clothes in the store to steamed buns on the street.
The U.S. has announced a shift in its policy towards Beijing's claims to offshore resources in the South China Sea. The hotly contested body of water is a key shipping route and an abundant fishing area. It's also one of the biggest sticking points in China's relationship with neighboring countries.
They're claiming that they have exclusive territorial rights, both in terms of military access as well as resource exploitation. And if you look at those demands on a map, they basically run from China's shelf all the way up to the borders of these South China Sea countries like Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia. It's a pretty staggering, there you've got the map. You can see that, I mean, there's obviously no justification for these claims, aside from the fact that China is the dominant economic trading partner with all of these countries, and also is the dominant military partner in the region.